The woman you loved the most becomes the reason for your death, and from the grave, my soul rises not for love, but to claim my revenge. My name is Kim. I own a small auto workshop in the heart of the city. Every morning, I wake up early, drink a cup of tea, and head straight to my shop. By evening, I return home, exhausted but satisfied with the day's work. My life was simple, predictable, and peaceful. The smell of grease and the sound of engines filled my days. I had no big dreams, just the quiet rhythm of fixing cars, earning money, and living alone. Though the days passed smoothly, deep inside I sometimes felt a strange emptiness, as if something important was missing in my life. I didn't know what that something was, but I believed destiny had its own way of showing answers. One ordinary afternoon, as I was cleaning my hands with an oily cloth, the sound of a car struggling into the workshop broke my thoughts. A silver car came to a halt. The door opened, and from it stepped a young woman whose presence instantly changed the air around me. Her name, I later learned, was Lara. That single meeting was the spark that lit a fire, and never expected one that would shape my life, love, and eventually my death. The car door opened slowly, and a girl stepped out. She looked around, her hair swaying with the breeze, and then her eyes met mine. I felt my breath stop for a moment. She wasn't just beautiful, there was something about her that pulled me in. She walked toward me with a worried expression. "Excuse me, my car has been making strange noises. Can you check it?" Her voice was soft, yet confident. I nodded quickly, trying to act professional. "Of course, please leave it here. I'll take a look." As I bent down to inspect the car, I could feel her gaze on me. Every time I looked up, I caught her stealing glances, and then quickly looking away. My heart raced. By the time I finished checking her vehicle, I was already lost in thoughts of her. I handed back the keys and said, almost nervously, "If you're free, maybe we could meet somewhere else. Perhaps a restaurant." For a moment, she stayed silent. Then a shy smile appeared on her face. "All right," she replied softly. That one word filled my entire being with joy. I knew my life was about to change forever. The following evening, I closed my workshop early and went straight to the restaurant we had agreed on. My hands trembled slightly as I carried a bouquet of fresh red roses. The soft lights, the faint music, and the smell of coffee set the mood perfectly. Lara was already seated at a corner table, waiting for me. She looked stunning, dressed in a simple blue dress that made her glow even more. As I approached, she smiled warmly, and my nervousness melted into excitement. I handed her the flowers. "For you," I whispered. She blushed, her cheeks turning pink, and accepted them gently. We talked for hours about life, dreams, and little things that made us laugh. With every word, I fell deeper for her. Finally, unable to hold it in any longer, I reached across the table and said, "Lara, will you be mine?" Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I feared silence. But then she lowered her gaze, smiled, and nodded. Double quotes, "Yes, Kim," she said softly. My heart exploded with happiness. In that quiet restaurant, surrounded by strangers, I had found the love that my life had always been missing. After our meeting at the restaurant, everything changed. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Lara and I grew closer with every passing moment. We went on long walks, shared countless laughs, and discovered comfort in each other's presence. It wasn't long before our love turned into something even more powerful. I asked her to marry me, and without hesitation, she said yes. The wedding was simple but filled with joy. Our friends and families celebrated with us, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. 2 years of marriage passed like a dream. We built a life together filled with laughter, warmth, and countless little memories. She would cook my favorite meals, and I would surprise her with flowers on random days. We were inseparable, two souls bound by love. Sometimes, I would pause and look at her, wondering how life had gifted me such happiness. The emptiness I once felt was gone. Instead, I woke up each day with gratitude and excitement, knowing Lara was by my side. But fate, as I would learn, never allows happiness to last forever. Shadows were waiting, silent and patient, ready to destroy everything I cherished. One day, Lara told me she was going to visit her parents for 2 days. I forced a smile, though deep inside I already felt her absence. The first day without her was unbearable. The house felt empty, the silence too heavy. Every corner reminded me of her laughter, her voice, her touch. I couldn't focus on work, and by evening, I felt restless. By the second day, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to her parents' house, just to bring her back sooner. When she returned with me, the joy on my face was impossible to hide. That night, we shared sweet conversations, enjoyed dinner, and went to bed peacefully. The next morning, she prepared breakfast, and I left for work as usual. Life seemed normal again. My routine continued. Days spent at the workshop, evenings at home with Lara. Everything felt steady, like calm waters before a storm. I had no idea that fate was about to twist my life in the cruelest way possible. The happiness I cherished so dearly was soon to be poisoned by betrayal, one that would shatter not only my heart but also my soul. It began innocently. One afternoon, while I was repairing a car, another young woman entered my workshop. She looked troubled and explained that her vehicle needed fixing. I treated her just like any other customer, focusing only on the work. But over the next few days, she kept returning. Each time, her car had a new problem. At first, I thought she was simply unlucky, but soon I noticed her eyes on me. She smiled in ways that made her intentions clear. I avoided her gaze, refusing to encourage anything. My heart belonged to Lara, and I had no reason to betray her trust. Still, the girl persisted. She would ask unnecessary questions, linger around the shop, and try to start conversations beyond cars. I began to feel uneasy, but I ignored it, thinking it would eventually stop. One day, however, her persistence would set into motion a chain of events I could never undo. She came again, this time with 2 flat tires, and her request would change everything. She looked at me with pleading eyes, and said, "Please drop me home." And without realizing it, I made the biggest mistake of my life. That day, the girl with the flat tire stood in front of me, almost helpless. "Please drop me home," she asked, her voice trembling with false innocence. I hesitated for a moment, but eventually agreed. After all, I thought, it was just a ride, nothing more. I got into my car, and she sat beside me. The streets were crowded as we entered the city, and I focused only on driving. But destiny struck at the cruelest moment. As we passed a busy marketplace, I failed to notice the most important detail. Lara was there, shopping. My wife's eyes landed on us. From her perspective, it must have looked like I was enjoying a drive with another woman. I had no idea she had seen us. I dropped the girl off at her home and returned to my workshop, carrying no guilt. To me, it was just a favor, a simple act of kindness. But for Lara, it was the spark of suspicion, the seed of betrayal that would soon grow into a nightmare. That evening, when I returned home, I found her quiet, distant, her eyes avoiding mine. When I asked, she simply whispered, "I have a headache." I didn't realize it then, but my life was about to collapse. That night, I slept peacefully, unaware of the storm brewing inside Lara's mind. But she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene of me driving with another woman. Next morning, as I left for the workshop, her thoughts grew darker. A poisonous idea began to form. If my husband can betray me, then why can't I do the same? There was a young man living next door to us, a boy with restless eyes and a bold smile. Lara knew he often looked at her. That day, she decided to test him. She called him over, her voice unusually soft. "Would you like to be my friend?" she asked. The boy, without hesitation, agreed. And that was the beginning of a sin, a betrayal she chose willingly. While I worked at the shop, thinking of nothing but engines and bolts, she was crossing lines that would tear our love apart. She smiled at him. He touched her hand, and slowly, without regret, they fell into an affair that would soon destroy me. I had no idea that the woman I trusted most had already chosen to betray me in the most unforgivable way. At first, I noticed nothing unusual. Lara was still kind, still attentive. But slowly, small details began to change. She started spending more time on her phone, whispering into it late at night. When I asked, she would quickly put it down and smile, pretending nothing was wrong. Unease in my chest grew stronger each day. Something about her felt distant, as if her love was slowly slipping away. One morning, I decided to test her. I pretended to leave for work, but quietly returned home, walking softly toward the bedroom. From inside, I heard her voice low, secretive, speaking to someone over the phone. I leaned closer, desperate to hear. But at that exact moment, my car keys slipped from my hand and hit the floor. The sound echoed like thunder in the silent house. Lara froze. She rushed outside and found me standing there, startled. I quickly lied, holding up some papers. "I forgot these," I said, forcing a smile. She narrowed her eyes, but then nodded. I left, but the truth was clear. I could no longer ignore my suspicions. That day, I made a decision that would uncover the darkest reality of my life. My heart was heavy with doubt, and I could no longer live with uncertainty. That evening, as Lara left for shopping, I quietly began my plan. With trembling hands, I installed a small hidden camera inside our home. Its feed connected directly to my phone. It was a cruel thing to do, but I told myself it was necessary. Love demands trust, but suspicion demands proof. The next day, while sitting at the workshop, I opened the live feed on my phone. At first, everything appeared normal: the living room, the silence, the stillness. But then, the front door opened. I watched in disbelief as the boy from next door stepped into my house. Lara greeted him not with the warmth of a friend, but with the passion of a lover. He hugged her tightly, and she didn't resist. Instead, she welcomed it. My chest burned with fire. My hands shook so violently that I nearly dropped the phone. I couldn't believe my eyes. The woman I had loved, more than life itself, was betraying me. And then I heard him whisper, "Come to my house. It will be safer there." Without hesitation, she agreed. I sat frozen in my workshop, watching the betrayal unfold on my phone screen. My blood boiled. My breath came heavy and uneven. I could barely think straight. How could she do this? After everything we had built together, 2 years of love, laughter, and dreams, she had thrown it all away. And for what? A neighbor boy with a greedy smile. The world around me blurred. The clinking tools, the noise of passing cars, even the ticking clock, all of it faded as anger consumed me. I could think of nothing but revenge. I grabbed an iron rod lying in the corner of the shop. My hands tightened around it, the metal cold but comforting. I stormed out, heading straight toward the boy's house. Every step felt heavier, my mind clouded with rage and heartbreak. I didn't care about right or wrong anymore. I only knew I needed to face them, both of them. When I reached his house, I saw them through the window, standing together. Lara's face turned pale when she noticed me. She whispered quickly, warning him of my arrival. But I was already at the door. My fury could no longer be stopped. The door creaked open, and I stepped inside, gripping the iron rod tightly. My eyes met Lara's first. She stood in front of me, trembling, but not with guilt, with fear of being caught. Tears filled my eyes, but they weren't of weakness. They were of betrayal. "Why, Lara?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why did you do this to me?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her silence was worse than a confession. Then I noticed movement behind her. The boy stood there, his expression cold, his hand clutching something shiny. My heart dropped when I realized it was a gun. Before I could react, Lara stepped aside. The boy raised the weapon, his smile twisted with cruelty. The first shot rang out. Pain seared through my back as the bullet tore into me. I staggered, the iron rod slipping from my grip. The second shot pierced my chest, straight into my heart. My knees gave way, and I collapsed to the floor. My last sight was Lara standing over me, her face a mask of shock and fear. And then darkness. My killers did not waste time. My body, lifeless and bleeding, was nothing more than a burden to them. Now, together, Lara and the boy dragged me across the floor, their breaths heavy with fear. They wrapped me in thick black plastic, sealing me away like garbage. My blood soaked through, staining the edges. Then, under the cover of night, they lifted me into the trunk of a car. The drive was long and silent, the hum of the engine drowning their whispered arguments. Lara's hand shook as she gripped the wheel. The boy sat beside her, clutching the gun that had ended my life. Finally, after 4 kilometers, they reached a lonely river outside town. The water glistened faintly under the moonlight. Without hesitation, they carried me to the edge and pushed my body into the dark currents. I sank quickly, the weight of betrayal dragging me deeper than the water ever could. They stood there for a moment, watching until I disappeared completely. Then they left, believing their crime was hidden forever. But they were wrong. My body may have drowned, but my spirit refused to leave. I lingered, bound by anger, thirsting for revenge. Death should have been the end, but for me, it was only the beginning. My eyes no longer opened, but I could see. My heart no longer beat, yet I could feel. I rose from the river, not as a man, but as a shadow. My reflection in the water was pale, my body transparent, my eyes hollow. I was no longer Kim, the mechanic, the husband. I was something else, a ghost, bound by betrayal. I drifted through the night, weightless and silent. The world around me looked the same, yet different. Colors seemed dull, sounds distant, but emotions, pain, rage, vengeance burned, brighter than ever. I watched from afar as Lara and the boy returned home. Their laughter filled the air, mocking the love I once believed in. They carried on with their lives as though I never existed. Soon, they even married, turning my home into theirs, filling it with their false joy. But they didn't know. Every night, as they slept, I stood beside their bed. They couldn't see me, but they shivered in their dreams. My presence haunted them, waiting for the right moment to strike. Their time was coming. Weeks passed. Lara and her new husband lived happily, but the guilt never fully left their eyes. Sometimes, I caught her glancing at the shadows, as if she could sense me. The boy, however, remained bold, confident that their crime was buried with me. One night, they decided to drive into the city. The car roared down the empty road as they laughed, their hands entwined, music playing loud. They believed life had given them freedom, but they weren't alone. I sat silently in the back seat, my ghostly form hidden from their sight. My cold presence filled the car, and though they couldn't see me, a sudden chill made Lara rub her arms. "Did you feel that?" she whispered. The boy shook his head, laughing. "You're imagining things." But he was wrong. I was there, watching, waiting, and when the moment came, when a truck appeared from the left side of the road, I gripped the steering wheel with invisible hands. No matter how hard he tried to turn, it wouldn't budge. Panic filled their faces. Screams echoed in the night. The crash was inevitable. The truck's headlights blazed like burning suns, growing larger by the second. Lara's scream tore through the night as she clutched her lover's arm. The boy pulled at the steering wheel desperately, veins bulging in his neck, but my ghostly grip held it firm. "Turn, turn," Lara shrieked, tears streaking her face. "I'm trying," he roared, terror shattering his voice. But my will was stronger. The car refused to obey him. I wanted them to feel what I had felt. The helplessness, the fear, the betrayal. In those final seconds, I leaned closer, my cold breath brushing their necks. For the first time, they both felt me. Their murderer returned as the murdered. Their eyes widened, not at the truck, but at the faint reflection of my face in the windshield. And then, metal collided with metal. Glass shattered. The car crumpled, like paper, as the truck thundered through it. Their screams cut off instantly, replaced by silence and smoke. I let go of the steering wheel. My work had only just begun. The twisted wreckage lay in the middle of the road, steam rising into the night. The truck driver stumbled out, shocked and horrified, but he could do nothing. Lara's body was lifeless, her head turned unnaturally. The boy lay slumped over the wheel, blood pouring from his chest. The world was silent except for the crackle of broken wires and the hiss of leaking fuel. I stood among the ruins, untouched, my ghostly figure shimmering in the chaos. For a long moment, I simply stared at them. They had chosen betrayal, chosen greed, chosen to end my life. Now their own lives had been ended in a way they never saw coming. A strange calm washed over me. I should have felt satisfaction, but instead, there was only emptiness. Revenge had been mine, yet my heart what remained of it still ached. The driver called for help, his trembling hands dialing frantically, but it was too late. The two who had murdered me were gone forever, and I, a restless spirit, still lingered. Days turned into nights, and still, I wandered. People talked about the accident, about the couple who died tragically, never knowing. The truth to them, it was just fate. To me, it was justice. But the strange thing about revenge is this: it doesn't heal. It doesn't bring peace. Even after watching them die, I remained trapped. A shadow tied to the world of the living. I visited the workshop where I had spent my life. The tools were still there, untouched, as if waiting for me to return. I drifted through the empty rooms of my home, the echoes of laughter mocking me. Sometimes, neighbors would pass by and whisper. They claimed the house was haunted. Lights flickered on their own. Windows slammed shut without wind. And at night, faint footsteps could be heard. They were right. It was me. I wasn't alive. Yet I wasn't free either. I was something in between. Ghost forever bound by love and betrayal. And I knew, deep inside, my story wasn't finished. As the weeks passed, strange things began happening to others who knew Lara and the boy. Friends who had encouraged their affair heard whispers in the night. A neighbor who had once mocked me saw my shadow moving across his wall, though no one was there. People began avoiding the workshop, calling it cursed. Children refused to walk near my old house, swearing they could hear a man crying inside. I became a legend, the betrayed husband who never left. Some claimed to see me standing under streetlights. Others swore they saw my reflection in broken mirrors. But no one knew the truth, that I wasn't here to harm them. My wrath had been spent on Lara and her lover. What remained was sorrow, endless and cold. Still, the world feared me, and perhaps they were right too. For on certain nights, when the moon was full and the streets were empty, I wandered restlessly, searching for what I didn't yet know. Revenge had been mine. Their deaths were brutal, their screams silenced by the crash I had orchestrated. But in the end, what had I gained? I was no longer a man. I couldn't feel the warmth of sunlight, couldn't taste food, couldn't hold a living soul. All I had left was the endless memory of love and the bitter sting of betrayal. Perhaps this was my true punishment, not death by bullet, but life after death. A life where peace would never come, where the woman I once adored would haunt me. As much as I haunted her memory, the world moved on. New people came, new lives began, but I remained, forever bound to the shadows of my past. Sometimes, I watched lovers walking hand in hand, and I wondered, was love ever real, or was it always waiting to turn into betrayal? I am Kim the mechanic, the husband, the ghost. My story is carved, not in stone, but in whispers, and if you ever feel a sudden chill behind you, a presence watching when no one is there, know, it might be me.